Check out carmarshal.com. The link is in the description. They help support us.
By his own admission, violates the very law that we are sworn to protect. And it's angry. It makes me angry.
Shock and anger coursing through two East Alabama law enforcement agencies today after arresting one of their own. Good afternoon. We thank you for trusting News 3 as your source for news at 5/4 Central Time. I'm Phil Scoggins. First this afternoon, a shocking story out of Russell County today. A former Phoenix City police officer is behind bars accused of raping a woman while she was in police custody. The man you see behind me right here is that officer, 35-year-old Eldrick Kennedy. Russell County Sheriff Heath Taylor made the announcement at a news conference earlier this afternoon. News 3's Ashley Garrett is live outside the Russell County Jail where Kennedy...
I didn't want to go on camera, but they did tell me that the wife is pregnant again and that she was completely blindsided by today's news. I caught up with Sheriff Taylor after the conference. This investigation. Police say part of the reason why they believe the allegations against Kennedy could be true is because he turned off his body camera shortly after arresting the victim. Sheriff Taylor says the woman was arrested after shoplifting at the Piggly Wiggly on 280 in Phoenix City. He says the officer then took the woman to an undisclosed location on U.S. Highway 431, having sex with her while she was still wearing handcuffs. Sheriff Taylor says when asked, Kennedy did not appear to deny the sexual claims.
He did, for the most part, confess to the elements of rape first. The difference between his story and hers was that he said it was consensual and she said it was not, that she was scared and fearful. We all know that there is no consensual when you're in custody, so that doesn't play a part in this case.
Given this incident and other incidents involving police nationally, but they say despite this, they're encouraging the community to not lose faith.
I don't care what the scenario is, I don't care what the circumstance is, you have to know and trust that your law enforcement agency is going to do the right thing.
Number one priority is the protection of this community, the citizens of Russell County and Phoenix City, and that starts with our departments, and we'll continue to do that, and make no mistake about it, there will never be a time that an allegation like this is brought to mine or the sheriff's attention that swift action will not be taken.
Kennedy has since been terminated from the Phoenix City Police Department, and right now he's being held in the Russell County Jail on a $60,000 bond. Coming up on the news at 6, we'll learn of efforts that are now underway to have Kennedy transported from the Russell County Jail to Lee County Jail. For now, though, I'll send things back to you in the studio. Live in Russell County and on your side, Ashley Garrett, WRBL News 3.
Thanks for that live report, Ashley. And according to the Phoenix City Police Department, Kennedy was a 5-year veteran with their force. In a
Ready? We want to welcome y'all to the Sheriff's Office this morning. We have a situation that occurred yesterday afternoon. Here at the Sheriff's Office, we had a lady come in and make an allegation against a Phoenix City police officer that she was sexually assaulted by the officer on her way to jail after being arrested. I contacted Chief Smith, advised him of the allegation. Chief Smith asked then that we officially handle the case through its completion on the criminal side of that allegation. He sent a subsequent letter to that effect so that we could put the letter in our case file. At that point, our investigation unit took the lady and we started a criminal investigation around the noon to 1 o'clock time frame. We were able to start talking with the city about some of the radio logs and calls that after that event, which was the 29th. She alleged that on the 29th of this month is when this happened. And we were able to pull some radio logs that early on in this investigation gave us some concern. There was the time frame that the officer left the scene, or got to the scene, and then left with her and did not show up at the jail in a timely manner. And so early on in this investigation, we had some concern about her allegations could potentially be true. So we took her statement. We later took her to the hospital for a rape exam, and we had her full statement that once the officer picked her up and had her in custody, he stopped on the way to the jail at a location here off of 431 and had sex with her while she was still cuffed in handcuffs. We were able to speak with the officer that afternoon. The city was certainly more than cooperative with the investigation. They were able to get the officer to come in. He was put on administrative leave. All of his equipment was taken, and he was turned over to our investigators for the criminal side. He was advised of his rights. During that interview with him, he did, for the most part, confess to the elements of rape first. The difference between his story and hers was that he said it was consensual and she said it was not, that she was scared and fearful. We all know that there is no consensual when you're in custody, so that doesn't play a part in this case. We believe that between the video evidence, the radio evidence, his statement, that we will be able to show the elements of what he has been charged with. Yesterday late, the decision was made to arrest him for rape first, and so he was placed overnight in the county jail. He saw a judge this morning and has been given a max bond of $60,000 for rape first. I don't know, as we came into the staff meet, into the press conference here, if he has made bond yet or not. If he does not make bond here in the next little bit, my intentions is to have him held in Lee County. I've already spoke with Sheriff Jones, and he is willing to hold him there in his facility until he makes bond. So if he is not bonded out soon, he will be transported to the Lee County Jail. The officer's name is Eldrick Devon Kennedy. Eldrick Devon Kennedy. He's a 35-year-old black male who lives at 204 Logan Drive in Phoenix City, in the Fort Mitchell area. We have, on occasion, have allegations where people make these type of allegations before. Most of them turn out to be not proven. They recant what they say, things like that along the way. You know, I'm thinking of the thousands of police officers and deputy sheriffs who do this job every single day to their best ability and to the letter of the law. And you have a case like this where someone obviously, by his own admission, violates the very law that we are sworn to protect. And it's angry. It makes me angry. We do everything we can to protect this community by the law, by being fair and upfront with everybody. And when we have someone take that trust and take that pride that we have in this job and just on a whim throw it in the trash can, it's disheartening. Because all of us here, all of the city, you know, we've got to deal with the aftermath. And we've got to deal with the community trusting our police officers and our deputy sheriffs. And it's a hard thing to stand here and talk about because the reality is still fixing to hit us. So we have to do what's right, and we have to do what's fair. And we believe in this case that we're doing that, and we're not going to stand for somebody in this profession, in our agencies, the Phoenix City Police Department or the Russell County Sheriff's Office, to violate someone's civil rights the way this person has obviously done, in our opinion. We're going to do what we can to prosecute him to the fullest extent of the law, and we're going to do what we can to regain the trust of our community, because this is not a common occurrence. We have as good a departments and officers as anywhere, period. And I don't want this to linger and have a black eye on law enforcement in our area. Bottom line. I as much as I hate having to stand here and talk about it, he's where he should be, in my opinion. And anybody that does anything like that in the future is going to be in the same place, and that's behind bars. So I'll answer on the criminal side. Any questions? I think it would be appropriate to give Chief Smith an opportunity to address the internal side from the city, and then maybe after that we'll try to take as many questions from you as we can.
Thanks, Sheriff. I'm Ray Smith, the Chief of Police, Phoenix City Police Department. I unfortunately have to be here on this day to bring you this sad news. It is in fact a sad day for law enforcement when we have to arrest one of our own. But I have no sorrow or no sympathy for the officer involved. The officer involved knew better. He had been trained. He knew the rules. He was a 5-year veteran. There is no excuse, and we cannot make any today. I do want to thank the sheriff and his department and the close working relationship that they have with our department. When he called me and told me about the allegation, and I asked him to take over the criminal side, he didn't even ask anything else. He said, yes, we'll take it. We'll do the best we can. We'll make sure. And from that point forward, we began an internal investigation to determine if any of the allegations could be corroborated. It was very, like the sheriff said early on in the investigation, it was quite clear that we had some red flags between the radio log, the recordings, the video recordings from the car, the body cam, all those things. And very early in the investigation, it was quite clear that this officer had violated a number of internal policies, violated a number of procedures, and of course we have probable cause to believe that he's committed this rape first. We terminated him as soon as we had enough information that knew that he had violated enough policies that he was in violation of the law. So irrespective of the criminal investigation, we don't have to wait for that to be over. He has violated policy within our department to the point that we don't have to wait for that. He was terminated as soon as we got to that point. So from about 2 o'clock when I asked the sheriff to take over the criminal side of the investigation, we went to his house, we took his vehicle, we took his equipment, we placed him on leave, got him down to the sheriff's office, and by the time we had looked into the allegations and looked into the record, it was quite clear that he needed to be terminated, and he was in fact terminated yesterday before he was even arrested. Moving forward, we will continue to work with the Sheriff's Department to get them the rest of the information and data that we can. All of our records are completely open to the Sheriff's Department. We actually share a database, so most of that stuff's going to be available. And we again appreciate the Sheriff's Department, their professionalism, their swift action to bring this to justice as quick as it occurred. Something that is this serious, we can't wait. This was a top priority all afternoon with our departments, and we'll continue to do that. And make no mistake about it, there will never be a time that an allegation like this is brought to mine or the sheriff's attention that swift action will not be taken. We appreciate the court for setting the bond and sending a message, the maximum bond that was set on this case. We look forward to continue to work with the sheriff and bring some resolution to this. Do you have anything else to add? Chief, you have anything else? Chief, good. So at this time, if you have any questions that we haven't covered, obviously, again, remember this is an ongoing investigation, so some of those things we can't be specific about. But
how was the victim taken into custody? Why was she even pulled over and taken into custody?
This started as a shoplifting case at the Piggly Wiggly on the bypass in Phoenix City. So she was arrested for a theft for shoplifting complaint.
The officer that was arrested, is there a reason to believe that he's raped any other individual that he arrested?
You know, there's no telling potentially what may come of this. We do not see at this point any other cases with him that this could happen. You know, who's going to come forward and say something? We have no idea. As they come forward, if they come forward, we're going to handle every single case the same way. We're going to look into it as much as we can, and we're going to do our due diligence to make sure that we find every victim, if there is other victims of this offender. We don't see any, but there's no way to really know. We did question him about that during our interview. We did ask him about that. He stated that there was nobody else that would be coming forward. So we'll just have to wait and see. That's an ongoing part of the investigation that we'll have to deal with as they come in.
And that'll be on both sides, both the criminal and administrative. Again, he was a 5-year veteran, so he's got 5 years worth of records that we'll be pouring through. We'll look at any of those arrests. We'll check the timestamps. We'll be looking at all of those things. Now that this information has come forward, that's part of our review, is to go back and try to uncover as much as we can. Certainly we want to hold everybody responsible for everything that they've done. And so certainly we're not going to rest until we've uncovered as much as we can and as possible.
How does this affect other criminal cases that the officer was involved in?
Again, that's part of that review. You know, certainly that brings into question his credibility. And that's a problem for the police department. That's why these kinds of cases become so problematic. You know, when you have an officer that's violated the trust, you know, how far does that go? Well, it can go all the way back to the first day he was on the job, the first case that he made. So it's very problematic, and we'll be obviously having to work with the courts and the district attorney's office and review just every case that he's ever made.
In today's public climate with law enforcement, I know this battle and the strain that you go through, the sheriff touched on it. This is a devastating blow in this broader, not just to Russell County law enforcement, and I'm just curious what your comments are on that.
You're right, it's a devastating blow to law enforcement, totally. Again, these cases are rare, but every single one is one too many. Just recently, I know that, you know, it was in the news, the case out of Harris County. I mean, these cases do happen, and we do our best to, you know, vet our officers, train our officers, supervise our officers, but they're going to be, if somebody wants to break the law, break the rules, that's their behavior, and they're going to have to own that responsibility, and that's what we tell them. When it happens, you're going to own that responsibility. There's no favoritism. There's no, because we've worked with you for 5 years, then we're going to help you in this situation. No, we're going to do our best to make sure that officers who have violated that trust, our trust, that we've put in them, we're going to hold them more than accountable. We're going to do our best to pressure the courts and the judges to give them the most maximum that we can, to the most fullest of the law. We're going to take this as a personal vendetta to make sure that officers don't do it in the future. because they know that we're not going to support that action. We're just going to take care of it from the get-go. And that's one of the things that I hope that citizens realize, that whenever the responsibility to supervise law enforcement officers is given to us, either through elected office or appointed office, that is our #1 priority, is to make sure that our officers are held accountable for every action that they do. I tell officers all the time when I'm interviewing them for the position, you know, this job, if you mess up, you're going to jail. If you mess up in a job in the civilian world, worst case scenario, you may get fired. I make it clear. And so I think every officer that I've ever interviewed can tell you that during my interview, at some point I've told them that if they mess up, they're going to go to jail. So take that job understanding that that will happen.
So that Phoenix City officer is now being held in the Russell County Jail? But there was some mention of Lee County. What is that?
Well, my intention is if he cannot make bond due to his working here in this county, I think probably the smartest thing to do is to hold him in Lee County, where he hopefully has not made arrest and people would be in the jail type scenario. So if he doesn't make bond, then we will probably transfer him and hold him in Lee County until he does either make bond or go to court at some later date. But I think that the smarter thing to do would be to house him long term in another facility where he's not potentially in this facility with people that he's arrested in the past. And you know, talking about what Chief Smith said, I mean, this whole issue in our community around the country, in every local community, is about trust solely. And without trust that your law enforcement agency, wherever you live, is going to do the right thing, no matter who the offender is utmost important in every community that you're in. I don't care what the scenario is, I don't care what the circumstance is, you have to know and trust that your law enforcement agency is going to do the right thing, whether it's citizens on citizen case, whether it's an officer involved case, it doesn't matter, whether it's a elected official that did something wrong. You've got to know that the people that you have in place is going to do the right thing, and you have to trust that. And when that trust is violated, it's hard to gain back, and that's what makes us so angry. That's what makes the people who do the right thing on a daily basis so upset, because trust is the hardest thing to regain. When you think about your parents and their children, and when the parents lose trust in their children, it's hard to gain back. And that's what we have with our community, is trust. And without trust, it's a struggle, and things start going very sideways. And so it's important for me, and I've had the conversation, and they were in the same concept as I was. It's important for me to come to the media. Before y'all walked in this room, you had no idea what this case was. You had no idea. Nobody had told you about it, and us not come forward with it. We brought it to you. We brought this case to the public because we don't want the media to find out about it and think we're covering something up. And that's important to me. And that's how we've handled this case, and it's how we've handled cases in the past. That's our history of how we handle cases. So we've got to move forward from here, and we got to make sure that the community still has the trust in our law enforcement agencies that we're going to do the right thing. And so any more questions about the case in general?
Well, just getting back to the officer being held in Russell County, and if he doesn't make bond, you guys are going to look to get him in the Lee County jail. It sounds like we're trying to look out for him, and some people might say
no,
that's not needed.
Well, let's be clear. Once he comes in my facility, I have a responsibility to look after every inmate. And I can't afford for him or other inmates to get hurt. So don't misconstrue that. It's just as much looking out for the inmates that he was put in jail with as it is for him. I mean, my responsibility when he comes into that jail is to make sure that he nor other inmates get hurt. So if I can put a stop to that by moving him, then that's what should happen. I should not put him in a facility knowing that somebody could get hurt and I just throw my hands up and say that's okay. Then you as a citizen of this county is going to pay for that lawsuit when that occurs. So I have a bigger responsibility to the people in the jail, not necessarily just him, but the other 300 inmates in that facility to take care of them, and that's what I'm going to do.
Which division in the police department did you work with?
In the patrol division.
You have spelling on that name?
I do. ELDRICK, Devon, DEVON, Kennedy, KENNEDY.
Has he been disciplined any other time since he's been with the Phoenix City Police Department?
As a matter of personnel records, certainly I can't talk about that openly with privacy laws. But I can tell you that any time that any officer is complained about, we investigate those to the fullest. Sometimes these investigations take longer than normal. This one I'm glad that was able to resolve within the first day that we actually got the complaint. It's actually pretty rare that we're able to get that much information that quickly. And again, I think that speaks highly of the investigators here at the Sheriff's Department that they were able to get that timeline built in such a quick time that we was able to resolve this issue much faster than usual.
What rank was he?
He was a patrol officer.
Can you just reiterate when and where this happened?
This happened on the 29th of January. Began at Piggly Wiggly on 280 bypass where she was arrested for shoplifting. He transported her to the Russell County Jail but stopped between here and there and sexually assaulted her before he dropped her off at the jail. The time that the call came out was about an hour and a half before he dropped her off at the jail.
What time of day and where?
What's that?
You know, time of day and where this might happen?
Evening, about, what is it, 8 o'clock in the evening? Yeah. About 8 o'clock, 8:20 or so, I think, when the call initially came out. Took her about 20 minutes at the store to do paperwork, and then another 40 minutes to get to the jail.
What are the ages of the victim and suspect?
Suspect's 35.
Suspect's 35. I don't want to get into any demographics of the victim. I don't want to talk about anything other than a female.
This officer appeared to be married with children. Is that correct?
I'm not even sure that I know that for sure. He may. I don't know.
I do know the answer to that, but I'll just, his address is public record, his arrest is public record, but I don't want to talk about his family. But certainly, obviously, our department's going to be suffering from that. Just like anybody that does something wrong, their family's going to take a big part of that suffering as well. The officer is no longer employed. He will not have a job with our department. It's going to affect his family. But
his family.
I don't want to talk about his family. No.
Right.
Well, to be clear, this wasn't about his family. It's about trust.
That's right.
And when you talk about trust to
his
the
family,
public
absolutely.
oath, talk about trust to a family, a wife, and his small
Absolutely.
children.
That's right.
That's why I say rest.
And if that's the case, they're going to suffer for doing nothing, just like
They did nothing to deserve he has brought this on himself. He has brought this on his family. He's also brought it on to law enforcement as a community. It's devastating. So, to be clear, I think his family's going to suffer enough.
So when this preliminary hearing that was held, when was this held?
He didn't have a preliminary hearing. He had a first call hearing just to set bond. The bond was set at $60,000. He'll have a court date months down the road. So we don't know when that'll be yet. But he's already had a first call hearing, a appearance hearing where he had a bond set.
And this was when?
This morning.
This one.
Yes, ma'am.
And we keep calling the charge rape first. Is that
Yes.
because more charges could become of this?
I'm right now. I don't see any other charges coming of this. It's a rape first charge because someone in custody cannot consent. So his story was that it was consensual. There is no consensual side of anybody who's in custody, period.
I think to be clear, I think what you're asking is, this is not the first rape case. No, it's rape first degree. It's the most serious of rapes.
Gotcha.
There are several degrees of rape. Rape first degree is the most serious form of rape. So it's a standalone charge. But when you say rape first, that doesn't indicate that it may be a rape third, fourth, and fifth.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize you didn't understand
You
that.
gave me some extra tidbits, though. I appreciate
That's a
it.
legal term, that rape first degree is actually the statutory charge for that particular act that he did.
There's a rape first, rape second, rape third, and that's different.
There are different seriousnesses of rape.
But he has the most serious.
He has the most serious
Correct.
level.
And what does that charge carry a potential sentence up to in Alabama? Anybody know?
I would imagine 20 to life.
And so he's been placed on leave.
No, he was terminated.
He's terminated.
He was, when we first got the allegation, just to be clear, when we first got the allegation early in the afternoon yesterday, as standard procedure, we placed them on administrative leave, take their credentials, take their gun and badge. And then when we started looking from early afternoon, and he came down to the sheriff's office, we brought him down to the sheriff's office, we had enough information to terminate him at that point, violating several policies. So he was terminated probably midway through his interrogation at the sheriff's department. So he was terminated yesterday.
You know what his reaction was when you went out there and took his stuff and you arrested him? What kind of reaction do you have?
I don't think, it's hard to say what kind of reaction, it's, people when they know that they've violated, the trust, so they act a lot of different ways. They try to make excuses, they try to justify their actions. There's no justifying this.
Any other questions? Guys, thank y'all for coming. As we progress with this case, we're keeping our fingers crossed that we have no other victims of this offender or by this offender. If we do, obviously we'll let you know. As the case progresses on, we will be forthcoming with any information that we have of other victims from this individual. But right now, we're going to keep our fingers crossed that there are no other victims in our community by this guy. Thank y'all for coming.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Well, I have one other
Chief,
question.
appreciate it.
With him being taken into custody on the 29th, correct? What was the decision?
No, he was taken
No.
into custody. The incident occurred on the 29th. He was taken into custody yesterday.
Occurred on the 29th.
Last night.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so what was kind of the decision there as far as to when you guys would bring to the media?
She didn't bring it to us till yesterday.
Baby, we got this case. We started this case yesterday.
Okay.
She walked in the office yesterday with this information.
We didn't know about it
So-
until yesterday. That's what that comes from.
We put him in jail last night late, and we're having a conference this morning.
So there is or is not video of the incident actually happening?
Well, we're still looking for that. We're still pulling different locations that may have video. We haven't finished that yet. The actual act, we're not so sure that there's going to be, but we are hopeful that we can get some video from some other locations showing them going in, coming out, that type of thing. So we're still pulling all the videos from different locations that we can try to piece this thing together as best we can to go to court.
You were mentioning radio logs. Can you kind of explain?
Well, when a police officer calls something in on a radio, the dispatch keeps a radio log. Our computer keeps a radio log of everything that occurs. So we can go back and we can hear when he first got out at the Piggly Wiggly on the bypass to answer that shoplifting call. We can hear when he left there and was en route to the jail with her. We can hear when he got to the jail. So the gap between driving from the Piggly Wiggly on the bypass to the jail is what, a 5-minute ride? And when we saw that there was a long gap of time, right off the bat, we knew that there was a potential problem with this case. Once she told us that he stopped en route, then, you know, that when we heard the gap in there, it made us believe that, you know, she's probably telling the truth. And so we were able to early on see that there was a problem with this case from the radio logs.
So this officer didn't have a body cam on.
He was equipped with a body cam
But
and a
it was-
vehicle cam, and we do have some body cam and some video cam. That's part of the investigation that we're looking at that. Certainly that's part, there were some gaps in that video where he turned it off. That's part of a violation issue that's part of his termination, irrespective of anything else. So yeah, he was equipped with those, and we do have some of that evidence. All the video, I haven't looked at all the video because all we needed to see is that he didn't record the entire event from the time that he arrested her and the time that he dropped her off. That's a violation because he didn't record that entire event. That's one of the charges why he was terminated.
Was the assault captured on camera?
Not that I know of, but again, we haven't fully looked at all the body cam video and all the car cam video. We pulled the video camera out of the car. We're going to take that video camera and download the hard drive. We're going to try to recover as much video of everything that we can. His body cam has been turned over to the Sheriff's Department. Again, that's going to take some time to forensically look at all the body cam video and all the car cam video. But there is body cam and car cam video of the arrest. But there are some gaps that we had initially looked at that we see some gaps. So that was part of the decision for termination. Just because why would you turn it off to begin with? That's the reason you have the body cameras. Is if somebody made an allegation like that, it's very easy to refute. Well, if you turn your body camera off, it's real easy to prove.
With a long gap in time, how long did it take him to get the woman who was accused of shoplifting to the jail?
About, was it 40 minutes? About 45 minutes.
But it should have taken, what, about 10 minutes?
About 5 at the most.
5.
Is that Piggly Wiggly?
I mean, Piggly Wiggly on the bypass to the Russell County Jail.
That's less than 2 mile drive.
You know. Thank y'all for coming. We will email his mugshot to everybody and the charge, so you don't have to worry about that. We'll email it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
County, this is Charlotte County Cop Watch, and I wanted to explain what fair use is. You can use pieces of your news articles if you're doing it for news reporting, you have commentary, and you're doing it for education purposes. So that's what fair use is, as you can see right here. Another reason why I wanted to make this video is to let you know I have just joined with Patreon. A nice thing with Patreon, I make no money on YouTube. They took the money away years ago, and so this is another way to give, and it's a nice thing too because you can give monthly. You can give $1, $5, $10, whatever. I do 4 to 5 hours a day on trying to wake the sheeple up on how corrupt it is and different ways that you can fight the corruption. So Patreon is a way that you can do it, and then of course the old way is still there. Donate to Sheriff County Cop Watch with PayPal or credit card. So keep that in mind. 4 to 5 hours a day. I make no money, but the corruption happened to me and I'm sick of it, so I'm trying to wake people up. But my wife would love it if if we could get some help out there. There's 47,000 subscribers. Just think if each one of you subscribers just gave let's say actually yes, $1 a month. 47,000 subscribers gave $1 a month. That would be awesome. That's not going to happen. But anyways, that would be great if it did happen. But do the math in your head. Just think about it. Like I said, 4 to 5 hours a day. I get no money from YouTube. YouTube has gone nuts. You can't do anything anymore. They're taking the money away everywhere. So these are a couple different ways that you can still help out with all this time that I put in. And as you know, I'm in a special situation where, at least I can do it. 4 to 5 hours a day. We have a cleaning company during the day. That's what allows me to do this, and we're debt-free. So this is my hobby. I don't go fishing and all that other crap. I try to save the world. So help me out to make the wife happy, man. In fact, if you guys did give $1 a day, and there was 47,000 of you, and you did it, and each of you gave $1, and that was every month, oh my God, yes, I could quit. I could start suing them. Another idea, too, that we have is you know, if I got, you know, some funds, we could actually contact everyone that has been ticketed and or arrested and put in jail and start sending them postcards to let them know we're here and to see if everything went all right, and if it didn't, find out their story. So we could even do more investigations and more lawsuits. Lawsuits take money. So just think about that. You know, 47,000 of you so far right now. You know, $1 a day. I mean, $1 a month on Patreon, or $5 a month Patreon, 10, 20, whatever. Just do the math in your head. Help out. This is a lot of work every single day. Thanks.